2019, I was diagnosed with terminal disease. I needed an organ transplant. Without an organ transplant, I would die. In touch with the transplant team and the 6 doctors, and they started their testing on their own to make sure that my body was healthy enough, everything was good, and I would be able to withstand a 8 to 10 hour surgery. They wanted me to redo all my childhood vaccinations all over again because they could not find the charts. So I complied, and I told them whatever it takes to get it done. Finally, I was placed on the status 1 on the transplant list, and I got the call, and believe me, that was an emotional day. That was a happy day. The doctors told me that I was a very good candidate to transplant. Later on, in 2022, I was placed in status 2 of this transplant list. COVID-19 came into question, and they also told me then I would have to get a COVID-19 shot. I looked at the doctor and I asked him how safe it was. He looked right at me and he said 100% safe. I said 100% safe. There's no data, there's no science, there's nothing. It was just rolled out. They made the clinical decision. Anybody that needed a transplant in their transplant unit would have to get the COVID-19 vaccine. So I was trying to buy time, because the more time that went by and more information was coming out, because they kept threatening to take me off the transplant list. I didn't want to die, and I knew that's what was going to happen if they did. If people only knew how hard it was for me to make that decision, because I knew once I told them I did not want to take that vaccine and I wouldn't. It was the hardest choice of my life. So they told me, okay, then we'll have to remove you from the transplant list. They took the oath, their Hippocratic oath, to save lives and to do no harm, not to play God and sentence people to death. It was just a clinical decision they made around the table. Right. There was no policy until probably 4 or 5 months. And when I asked them to see the policy, I wanted to see the policy and to see what I was up against. That's when they made up the policy. They were just not going to bend. They told me straight out, it's either the vaccine or you are removed from the transplant list. I went to my programs. I went to the physios. I done all the vaccinations. I got all tested. I done everything that they asked me to do, except COVID-19 vaccine. And I needed data. I needed science. I needed something to say it was safe other than a doctor as soon as it was rolled out. They wouldn't test me for natural immunity. I asked them 3 times. They wanted me to take this vaccine no matter what. Excuse me, you're telling me I'm not forced, but yet I'm taking off a transplant list and given a death sentence and saying you're going to die because you don't want to get a vaccine, but so that's not forced. I always thought the death sentence was abolished many years ago. Well, how come I'm given a death sentence? Because I said I have to take it to court. It's my only hope to ask the judges to overturn the decision that the doctors made. My experience with the courts was that they didn't look at the science. They ignored the science altogether. The only thing the judge asked my lawyer was, does Miss Lewis have natural immunity? At that time, I didn't have natural immunity because the doctors would not test me for it. And I think they knew that. We showed so many links, we shared all the data from that, from Pfizer and Moderna and all that. All the adverse effects, people dying, pages and pages of it. And they didn't look at any of it. That was their only thing they wanted. They wanted a gag order, and they did not want it to be overturned. So they ruled against me, and they put the gag order on me, and they ruled in favor of the doctors and AHS. I appealed. I took it to the Courts of Appeal. This is what they said, that we don't know if we should or could intervene in a lower court's medical decision. So I lost again. So there, no science was looked at. No nothing. Long as they kept the gag order on me, and made sure that they agreed as well that I must get the vaccine in order to get a transplant. I can't exercise my constitutional right where I can speak freely, under the Alberta Bill of Rights. I have to go by what they say, or they can put me in jail. All I wanted was a transplant. Well, the Supreme Court of Canada made that choice for me, and then they put the cost on me. I now have to pay their fees.
Their legal expenses.
Yes. They know I ain't got that money, so they know I can't go any further. I can't do nothing. Nobody reached out. Nobody will hear my story. Nobody will ask my story. Mainstream media has never, ever, ever asked to hear my story, ever. Well, I'm going to fight as far as I can fight until I can't fight anymore. I'll just keep fighting, keep pushing back, and I hope it's enough for people. I hope it's enough to get other people to help.